In the year 2020, something happened at the school where my granddaughter goes. Marcus Lamb died too soon. Did Joni Lamb have anything to do with it? A scary question that is being asked by people close to the Lamb family in whispers. Marcus was the dynamic boss of Daystar Television Network. What if his death wasn't just a terrible accident? What if it set off a chain of events that makes us question the very things that we thought were strong, like trust, love, and honesty? We now go to Texas, where Marcus Lamb, the controversial CEO of a Christian TV station, has died after a fight with COVID-19. This past year, the conservative televangelist got a lot of attention when his network Daystar gave hours of airtime to groups and advocates against lockdowns and vaccinations. Marcus Lamb died quickly in November 2021. He was known for his strong faith and ability to lead. COVID-19 problems were the cause of his death. That being said, there were rumors going around among Christians that the time of his death might not have been as clear-cut as it seemed. It's possible that the death of this important person set off something much worse. Something that no one could have seen coming, or were these stories just the work of people who were grieving and trying to make sense of a loss they couldn't understand? I took care of Marcus on his last night in the hospital. Around 3 a.m., she told me, she just stood there in the dark and looked at me. She looked at me and said, "Look what you have done to this family." I texted my mom and said, "I can't do this anymore." I told God, "You feel the pain of my heart. Me and my child are ruining this family. I know, my God, you're watching out for me. You'll get me out of here." That was my last night. He passes away the next day. From the start, it was clear that Marcus's death would have a big impact on his family, his church, and the people who had been following his work. However, as the months went by, an odd trend began to show itself. Joni, his wife of more than 30 years, started making choices that caused a lot of trouble and made people even more suspicious. What about Doug Weiss, the counselor, who seemed to have a scary amount of power over her life soon after Marcus died? It seemed like they had a good connection, but were there forces at work behind the scenes that were changing the story? In the afternoon, I went to Daystar to get something from the cafe. I had my child with me, and there was something in the green room. We stopped taking her there because I could tell she was scared. She had a babysitter at home with her, but I needed to get something quickly this time. When I walk in, it's afternoon, and I didn't think anyone else would be there. It was terrible that I had to take her with me. When I go to get that box of food, Pete and his wife walk in. She was so scared that my child's body went limp and she fell hard under the table. I grabbed her little body, picked her up, and ran to the car. It was scary for me to tell other family members, even ones I trusted, about it. "I'm not bringing my child here," I said. As time went on, things got even less clear. It started out as a simple story about loss and getting better, but it quickly became much more complex and scary. Even more questions were raised when divorce papers, claims, and deep family divides showed up. What happened so quickly? Doug filed for divorce from his wife of over 30 years just 2 months after Marcus's death. Why did Joni want to support her relationship with Doug so much, even though many people were doubting its time and if it was real? There's something very disturbing about how quickly everything started to fit together. There must have been something more evil going on beneath the surface of this story of love. There was text messages, emails, and other paperwork that they showed me. I said, "Okay, now I need to talk to Jonathan and Susie again, and I'm going to do that this morning to hear their side. But I'm not going to keep going back and forth. What they showed me, I saw, I heard both sides. When I talked to Jonathan and Susie, I got a sense of something spiritual. I felt some things for sure. This interview I did at Daystar is going to be posted today. Everyone is free to cut it up, analyze it, criticize it, or say anything they want. It's fair and right for me to post the interview. Anyone can feel however they want about it. After that, I'll make a third and final movie in which I talk about what they showed me." The things that Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss did were looked at more closely as the days and weeks went by after Marcus Lamb's death. At first glance, Joni's choices seemed like those of a widow trying to find comfort and healing. But the speed with which her friendship with Doug Weiss grew quickly made people look twice. Doug, a counselor who has helped people heal from addiction and get back together with their partners, seemed to have gotten close to Joni way too quickly. 2 months after Marcus's death, on January 22, Doug filed for divorce from his wife of more than 30 years. At that time, rumors started to spread about his relationship with Joni. The order of events made for a picture that almost seemed too easy. Now, there was no doubt that Doug and Joni were getting closer, but the speed with which it happened raised problems. What caused a relationship that started out as the pain of losing a loved one to change so quickly? Also, why did Joni, who had just lost her husband, seem so eager to protect her relationship with Doug, even though it was still new and a bit controversial? If Jonathan wasn't already upset about not getting his way, it got even worse when I married Dr. Doug Weiss, who has been such a blessing to me, my family, and Daystar. As a mother and grandmother, I can tell you that this situation makes me very sad. It breaks my heart because I love my family so much, all of my children and grandchildren, and the work we've done together for so many years. I had hoped that we could have worked out our differences in private, but Jonathan has now made me say something. Everyone knows that we have spent our whole lives sharing Jesus' love, and it breaks my heart to see my son Jonathan and his wife attack that. Let me reassure you that all the claims being made about my late husband and I are totally false. There was no doubt that for some this was more than just a story of getting better. There was a lot of doubt and mystery in the story. The claims about Doug and Joni's relationship were not just about when they started dating. They were also about trust. Did they really act out of faith as they said they did, or was there something else going on, something darker and more planned? It was even more difficult for Joni because people close to her, even her own family, turned against her. Jonathan and Susie Lamb, her children, spoke out against what she did in public, adding fuel to the scandal. They were not the only ones who didn't agree with Joni's choices. Christians in general, who used to look up to her and Marcus as religious leaders, were now pulled between respect and doubt. How could someone who used to be so public about how much she loved her husband and family quickly move on to another man? As these links and choices came together, the feeling of a bigger plot grew. Why did Marcus die? Was there more to it than meets the eye? Was the sad ending of one chapter being used to start a different, more self-centered chapter? The way the marriage worked, the claims of betrayal, and the quick changes in family loyalty made a picture that was at best unsettling and at worst scandalous. The quick changes in family loyalty and the claims of disloyalty painted a picture that was at best unsettling and at worst scandalous. Yes, that's true, but I'd also like to add that because what we've been through is so incredibly painful, it's clear that we can never fully describe what we've been through in the last few years. I don't even want to talk about what that looked like, but it was unbearably painful. Yes, there is freedom in not having to rely on a few people and keep pleading for justice only to have it ignored and turned down like hitting a wall. There is happiness and peace. Now, when the story came out and how people reacted to it, I felt like justice was served because everyone agreed with how we parents felt. We had a strong desire to make a quick film. We don't want to tell our whole story right now. Jonathan and I quickly grabbed the camera and sat down to answer a few questions while the story went on. It got harder and harder to avoid the schedule that showed when Marcus Lamb died and what Jan did afterward. Not only did the accusations and doubts grow within the Lamb family, but they also spread through their church network, Daystar. Marcus Lamb was one of the most important people in Christian media, and millions of people heard his voice. Christians were shocked and saddened when he died so quickly from problems from COVID-19. But after he died, it wasn't just sadness that filled the air. There were also words that made people feel uneasy. Even though they were still just theories, the claims that Marcus's death was part of a plot seemed to be getting stronger. Joni Lamb had been married to her husband for decades and was now a widow. She had to deal with her own grief as well as the huge duty of running Daystar without him. For months, she talked about how sad she was about losing her partner in public. But things seemed to be moving very quickly behind closed doors. Doug Weiss, the counselor whose specialty was helping people heal from sexual addiction and marriage problems, seemed to be getting closer to Joni. At first, it looked like they were just friends because they were both going through hard times. But as time went on, it became clear that their relationship was more than just company. The timeline showed that there was more going on than meets the eye. A mental bond had formed between them before Marcus's body was even buried. We're going to do podcasts with great people where we talk about the important and deep things. The reporters were given our story and are now free to use it however they want. We have no say. We told them the truth and they will look into it. That takes months. It takes a long time, but this has been going on for a while. It didn't start today. They did their research and I'm proud of them. Because I didn't know how big this movie would become, I thought that was why I suggested we make it. Jonathan thought of something I honestly didn't. People who really love us want us to answer a few questions because we've been on TV so much and they've loved us so much. I thought it would be mean not to. These are the 4 questions we've been asked most often in the last few days. Why didn't we call the police? Why did it take so long to talk? 2. Why didn't I grab this man? And third, Susie screamed for me to go up instead of just going up herself. Fourth, why aren't we going public? What was even worse was that this bond seemed to form while Doug was dealing with his own problems. Doug was ending his own marriage at the same time that Joni was dealing with the death of Marcus. The times were almost the same. In January 2022, just 2 months after Marcus's death, Doug asked for. A lot of people quickly pointed out that it seemed fishy that he and Joni were already making plans to be together while Doug was still going through a hard divorce. How could their relationship be seen as good and pure when the timeline showed a bond that grew much faster and more complicated? Leaked audio tapes that showed up online added to the confusion about the claims that Joni and Doug were emotionally close. In these tapes, Joni strongly denied having any inappropriate conversations with Doug before they got married. She strongly defended her relationship with Doug, saying that it was based on prayer, faith, and a shared desire to get better. To defend herself, she said the claims were completely false and that nothing bad happened between them before they got married. But the leaked tape didn't really put an end to the theories. It made them stronger. First, let's break down the question, why didn't we call the police? To be fair, we did call the cops twice. To answer the second question, why did you wait so long to talk? I would say, let's go over the timeline. I know that in a story there is some back and forth because it's so complicated, so let's keep things simple. Because this is going to be a short film, we're going to do a very short version. Everything will keep coming out. There are some notes here about the most important parts, so let's go back to the beginning. To begin, in the early spring or summer of 2020, my sister noticed that my daughter was acting strangely by stiffening up when people got close. I also began to notice this. I didn't take it very seriously, though. I believed it was a normal part of growing up. Then, in the summer, on a trip, let's be a little more careful with our words here, need to be. This man says that our daughter saw him fully naked in a bathroom while they were on vacation. This is also new to me at this point. It was hard for me to decide what to do with it. I told him it was okay, so I said it was okay and went to check on my child. I thought she was fine, so I said okay. That day, I wasn't sure if I had told you or not. The situation was even less clear because the Lamb family was going through emotional and business problems at the same time. Jonathan and Susie Lamb, Marcus and Joni's son and daughter-in-law, were not only sad about losing Marcus, but they also had to deal with troubling claims that their young daughter had been abused. Reports said that Pete, a valued member of the Daystar Church, had done bad things without getting caught, and attempts to talk about these claims were blocked. Instead of acting right away to protect the child, the leaders of the Lamb family seemed to hide the truth in order to make it look like everyone was innocent. Some people, including past police officers, said that the polygraph tests that were shown online were not accurate and did not prove anything. There were calls for an independent probe, which made people think there was a cover-up even more. Then, that was then. It's been months, and she's beginning to look a little changing how she acts. It's November 2020, and she tells me in great detail that she was raped. It was the biggest surprise of my life. I have no words to describe how I felt at that time. I went to the person I trusted the most, the person I told everything to. That was a different question. Why did you go there? It was about 5:30 p.m., and Jonathan still hadn't come home from work. I was ready to leave for the day. I really trusted this woman, so she told me not to call the police. Instead, we're going to talk to the teachers. That day, when I talked to my daughter, she told me, "This woman is my mom." You can just say the name. I know it's still tough. It's easy to talk to a reporter one-on-one, but it hurts a lot to talk to everyone. We love these people. We don't hate or get mad at these people. Thanks, but I'm trying not to cry right now. Even stranger was Doug Weiss's part in this incident. A man who was supposed to be honest at work and who specialized in helping people who were having personal problems seemed to have gotten himself involved with the Lamb family's complicated web of grief, family arguments, and questionable decisions, where his expertise and maybe even his own personal interest were deeply involved. When Doug started dating Joni so quickly after her husband died, it made people wonder if he was really there to help her heal as a counselor, or if he was just using his power to get what he wanted. Joan's support of Doug made things worse. She said he had been nothing but a strong person who had helped her get through one of the worst times in her life. She talked very strongly about how much Doug loved his family and how he could love her in a way that no one else had. She told him that Doug's last marriage had been terrible and that he had always hoped for a miracle, no matter how hard things were. But a lot of people didn't like how quickly Doug and Joan went from being sad to dating, saying it didn't seem to fit with how loss works. They went from helping each other out to getting engaged in just a few months. Many people were wondering if they had really started dating after Marcus's death, or if it had been going on for a long time. So I asked my kid, I have never done this before. I'm not sure what leading questions are or were. I thought it was a school. Since she went to homeschool and we took her to Daystar, I thought it was a school. Is it at school? I asked her. She was scared and could only nod. I learned because, experts have now told me about that behavior, and it all makes sense. I asked, was it a girl or a boy? She replied, a boy. I asked, how tall are you, to get a sense of her age, and she said, taller than Daddy. That made me scared, because that's a guy that a 5-year-old doesn't know how to talk to. Now let's pick up the pace. After that, we'll go to school. That person I trusted, she and I talked to the teachers, and they said, there is no male here. It was almost like, okay, we've done our part, case closed. I told Jonathan, I don't want to talk into this. I don't want to have a talk with your family. Let's call the police. We did that and filed our report. Just a quick look into it because there wasn't much to go on. In the middle of this storm, the leadership at Daystar of the Lamb family became even less united. Some people, including family members, thought Joni's actions were a betrayal of Marcus's heritage. She supported them by saying that everything she did was guided by God. The harm done to the Lamb family, both individually and professionally, was becoming clearer as they tried to keep Daystar under control. And with each new piece of information that came out, like how Joni and Doug were becoming closer, the disturbing claims about Pete, or the refusal to help a third-party investigation, the question stayed. Was this really a story of love and healing, or was there something much darker going on? It looked like the truth was still out there to be found. Would the Lamb family face the sadness that was hanging over them, or would they keep hiding behind their public image and let the stories spread?